Did you know that is one of the most powerful weapons against police corruption? Isn't it always a camera? Sometimes it's the person behind the wheel. Because in this story, a traffic stop that should have been routine turned into the collapse of an entire police department. It all began with a simple flick of the wrist, a tiny plastic bag dropped into a car, and a voice that said, calm, steady, almost chilling, "I am the DEA. Before we dive deeper, make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you won't want to miss the ending." In suburban America, a quiet road, late afternoon sunlight bleeding into the horizon. A black woman drives home. She's in her early 30s. Her car is spotless. Her record is clean. In the rearview mirror, flashing lights, red, blue. She exhales, signals, pulls over. Two officers step out, one tall, too confident. The other short, jittery eyes scanning the street. The first words, "Ma'am, your taillight's broken." But here's the thing. She knows it isn't. She checked that very morning. Both lights worked perfectly. Still, she says nothing. Because silence is part of the test. One officer distracts her. "Where are you going? Where do you work? Why are you out here?" The other circles the car, flashlight in one hand. The other hand, hidden. She tracks him through the glass. The angle of his arm, the way his shoulder dips. And then, she sees it. A flick of the wrist. A plastic bag, dropped between the seat and the console. Fast, casual, like muscle memory. Like he's done it before. Her pulse quickens. But her face? Unmoved. Because she's not just any driver. She's trained. Prepared, waiting for this exact moment. The officer leans in. Smug, looks like we found something. His partner chuckles, already rehearsing the paperwork. But she tilts her head, locks eyes with him, and says 7 words that froze him cold. "Officer, do you know who I am?" He smirks. "Doesn't matter." She leans closer, whispers, "I am the DEA." The air shifts. Silence. Even the crickets seem to stop. The officer stumbles back. Color drains from his face. His partner swallows hard. Because in that instant, they realize the unthinkable. They didn't just frame a driver. They tampered with federal evidence on an undercover agent, and she has them on tape. She moves slowly, reaches into her jacket, not for a weapon, but for a badge. Gold, heavy, 3 letters engraved in steel. DA. The officer's confidence evaporates. The smug grins collapse. Her voice is calm, almost rehearsed. "Everything you just did is on camera." The shorter cop's hand shakes. The taller one whispers, "Oh my God." And then, she presses her radio. Code words flow. Within minutes, 2 black SUVs glide up. Silent, precise. Doors swing open. Men in plain clothes step out. No sirens. No yelling. Just controlled power. The crooked cops are trapped. Here's what the world didn't know. This wasn't random. This wasn't luck. The DEA had been investigating this department for months. Complaints stacked high. Innocent drivers suddenly caught with drugs. Case after case. Black, brown, working class, no priors. No explanation. Convictions near perfect. Because who would believe? A driver over the badge? So the DEA set a trap. And she was the bait. Her cover was airtight. On paper, she was a nurse. I lived nearby. Worked night shifts. No one suspected. Not her neighbors. Not her co-workers. Not even her family. But every time she drove those streets, her car was wired. Her jacket was laced with hidden cameras. Her phone synced directly to federal servers. She knew, eventually, they would bite. And when they did, she'd catch them in the act. The footage was undeniable. Dash cam, body cam, her hidden cameras. All synced, all clear. The flick of the wrist, the planted bag, the smug declaration. And then, the reveal. News broke like wildfire. Day Sting exposes police corruption. Officers caught planting drugs on innocent drivers. Families who had begged for justice suddenly had proof. Dozens of cases overturned. Innocent men and women released. Lives restored. But behind the headlines, something darker was lurking. The investigation widened. And what they found was bigger than anyone imagined. The officers weren't freelancing. They weren't just bad apples. They were part of a network. Evidence showed coordination between departments, patterns across counties, the same script, the same planted bags, and money, a lot of it, tracing back to drug cartels. The cops weren't just corrupt. They were working as mules, protecting shipments, framing locals, keeping the pipeline clean. For the real traffickers, this wasn't a scandal. This was organized crime. Wearing badges, federal indictments rained down. Chiefs, captains, patrol officers, entire units dissolved. Towns left without functioning police forces. Families of the wrongfully convicted filed lawsuits. Millions demanded damages. Some got justice. Others never fully recovered. But through it all, one woman remained the ghost in the story. The undercover agent. Her name is sealed. Her face was hidden. All anyone knew was that she had whispered 7 words and changed everything. But here's the haunting question. What if she hadn't been DEA? What if she was just another black woman? Driving home after work? Would she be in prison today? Would her life be ruined? Would anyone believe her? Because most of the time, there is no hidden camera, no badge, no backup, just a driver, a cop, and a story that no one will ever hear. The trial is still ongoing. Names of high-ranking officers remain sealed. The DEA refuses to comment. Rumors whisper of even deeper ties. Politicians, judges, entire counties complicit. The agent, she's been reassigned. Some say overseas, others that she's in hiding. But one thing is certain. Her words, "I am the DEA," still echo in every courtroom where this case is mentioned. And the bigger story? It may not even be told yet. So now I'll ask you, how many times has this happened without a camera? How many people are still sitting in prison cells right now because no one believed them? And the scarier question, how many more will never be caught on tape? Because if corruption wears a badge, who watches the watchers? The sting had made headlines, but headlines fade. Corruption does not. Within days, dozens of towns were thrown into chaos. Courtrooms flooded with appeals. Judges are suddenly cautious, prosecutors scrambling. And the same question echoed everywhere. How deep does this go? The DEA agent's footage wasn't just a smoking gun. It was a door. A door that, once opened, revealed a labyrinth. Case files dusted off. Old convictions re-examined. Patterns emerged. The same officers. The same broken taillights. The same little plastic bags. Names of victims piled high. Truck drivers. Single mothers. College kids. Grandfathers. That she's in hiding. But one thing is certain. Her words, "I am the DEA," still echo in every courtroom where this case is mentioned. And the bigger story? It may not even be told yet. So now I'll ask you, how many times has this happened without a camera? How many people are still sitting in prison cells right now because no one believed them? And the scarier question, how many more will never be caught on tape? Because if corruption wears a badge, who watches the watchers? The sting had made headlines, but headlines fade. Corruption does not. Within days, dozens of towns were thrown into chaos. Courtrooms flooded with appeals. Judges are suddenly cautious, prosecutors scrambling. And the same question echoed everywhere. How deep does this go? The DEA agent's footage wasn't just a smoking gun. It was a door. A door that, once opened, revealed a labyrinth. Case files dusted off. Old convictions re-examined. Patterns emerged. The same officers. The same broken taillights. The same little plastic bags. Names of victims piled high. Truck drivers. Single mothers. College kids. Grandfathers. Some had spent years behind bars. Others lost jobs, homes, reputations. Families torn apart. And the most chilling detail? The planted bags always contained just enough cocaine or meth to guarantee a felony. Not too much, not too little. Perfectly measured. Like a recipe. Like a business. Because that's what it was. A business. Disguised as law enforcement. The undercover agent should have been celebrated. Parades. Awards. Her face on every screen. Instead, she vanished. The DEA locked her identity away. No interviews. No testimony in public. Only sealed depositions. Why? Because the threats came fast. Anonymous calls. Emails. Even a note slid under her apartment door. You should have kept driving. This wasn't just local cops angry at being caught. This was cartel-level retaliation. And the agent was their prime target. Federal investigators pulled the thread. It led to captains, then to chiefs, then to sheriffs. Each swore ignorance. Each blamed the other. But the evidence was clear. Wire transfers, unexplained cash, luxury cars on modest salaries, vacations paid in full by consultants. And the cartels? They stayed quiet. Because when your dirty work is done by men in uniform, you barely need to speak. The first officers arrested faced trial. The courtroom was packed. Families of victims on one side, nervous officers on the other. The defense tried to spin it. Misunderstood procedure. An isolated incident. But then, the footage rolled. Every angle, every sound, the flick of the wrist, the planted bag, her calm voice. "I am the DEA." The jury gasped. The officers dropped their heads. There was no defense. Verdict, guilty. Sentences, decades. But this was just the beginning. As trials unfolded, more evidence surfaced. Emails between departments, encrypted messages, references to shipments and packages. The language was careful, but the meaning was clear. These cops weren't rogue. They were logistics, a distribution arm, a shield for cartels. One chilling file detailed traffic stop quotas. Not for safety, not for crime, but for framing. At least 5 busts per week. Targets, people least likely to fight back. Minorities, immigrants, the poor. Justice wasn't blind, it was hunting. As indictments spread, entire departments collapsed. Towns woke up with no functioning police. 911 lines rang unanswered. Mayors begged for state troopers. Residents patrolled their own streets. Chaos. But also a strange relief. Because for years, the protection had felt like a threat. And now, for the first time, the masks had fallen. The DEA agent's sting exposed everything, but it also left a haunting question. How many times has this happened? Without an undercover? Without a camera? Without anyone listening? How many lives erased? With a flick of the wrist? And worse, if these cops were working with cartels, how many others are still out there? In other counties? Other states? Because of corruption is contagious. The federal trial moved forward, but whispers spread that the real masterminds were never touched, that politicians had known, the judges had looked away, that the cartels still had allies in uniform. The undercover agent? Gone! Some say relocated, others say it is silenced. And then, a leaked document surfaced, suggesting the sting wasn't just about one town. It was part of a much bigger operation, a nationwide map. Dots across dozens of states, marking departments under suspicion. If true, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. So here's the question for you. If the DEA needed an undercover agent to expose just one small town department, how many more are out there right now, planting evidence,